People pleaser, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Congratulations on Fortune magazine. That's quite a milestone in your life, isn't it?
Thank you. It happened all so quickly, but I'm just very grateful for the opportunity, of
Your
course.
contribution, probably it's well-deserved. That's all I can say. When I see NFTs, obviously I didn't really get it back in the day, but recently I had a little bit of a aha moment. I want to share with you. You're going to think I'm weird, but my daughter was playing this Nintendo Switch game.
Mm-hmm.
And
Love
it was a
Nintendo Switch.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you know the Just Dance games?
Yes, I do.
So it's 2021, the new one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And after like getting some points, she earned some sort of virtual sticker. It's like a puzzle sticker.
Cool.
And all of a sudden, like she looked at me and she said, "Daddy, I have already 4 stickers. I'm so happy to collect these." And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my God, I never understood NFTs, but it's a generational thing. I'm too old.
Yeah, I actually, just on the panel that I did was talking about, I literally brought up Nintendo Switch as an example, but, perhaps maybe you think there's like a generational thing, but to me, it comes so naturally. I was just saying it as if this is something that everybody is familiar with, or this concept of digital ownership, within like Blizzard games, Nintendo Switch games, these assets that we are so familiar with, owning an island in Animal Crossing, or when I play Super Smash Brothers, like when they reward me with their in-game coins, so that I can, unlock new features or whatever. These are all concepts that everybody is already familiar with. And so it's natural to me that it translates to NFTs, which, like I also was saying, now has sort of real value, because I can't take my Nintendo Switch tokens and go, maybe somebody will buy them, I don't really know, but the whole concept of the metaverse, and now with crypto and the blockchain and NFTs, is actually just capturing that. And then also hopefully, being able to do things cross game. It's not just the IP is owned by like a certain company anymore. It's like you own the IP of, digital goods and assets, but also that these are hopefully tradable in, just it's like literally the metaverse is an entire ecosystem that is cross game, cross chain, and I guess just like the digital realm.
Yeah, absolutely. What's really funny? My mom is an artist, and I still picture her like picking up these heavy paintings and having to move them around. Where NFT, you just have it in your pocket, right? Yeah. It's like when you have to move
yes.
it.
I know, and I've been taking on a more of a nomadic lifestyle recently. So,
like many.
Yes, I think probably inspired by COVID and many other reasons. But now I also feel like having physical possessions is so burdening. Yeah, especially when you're moving around all the time. I'm just like, I don't need stuff.
That's so true. Literally, I still have that image. It's very vivid. And I'd love to ask you, but what makes a cool NFT these days? Obviously, you've had great success. I'm not asking you to share your secret recipe, but what is a cool NFT these days? How do you see, this is probably going to be successful, like these dogs or these animals are going to be a successful collection? Like, what are some things that you look at when you're looking out there?
Well, coming from like the creator's perspective, especially when I was starting out, right, and I didn't have sort of like a following, because I feel like now, if you're Gary Vee or someone, and you drop anything, people are just going to buy it, right? And so what do you do when you are not that? You know what I mean? And this is the same concept of celebrities coming in and dropping an NFT. It's just by association, it has value, right? But when you're not somebody who's already famous, how do you create something that has value? And I spoke a little bit about this on the panel where, sort of, I think it's very interesting and fascinating to explore like memes and what makes a meme viral. Memes are essentially the fastest and most efficient way to spread information.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And, there's obviously an element of humor, but also I think there's like that serendipitous, last chunk where it's kind of random and, nobody can actually artificially create that or grasp that. For example, why did the Doge meme become so viral, right? But I'm not gonna lie, when I first saw Doge, but it's not just the image itself, but the culture that was created around it,
incredible.
The funny sort of grammar that is used and the Comic Sans font. And I don't know, it's just like that combination just makes me, it's infectious, and it makes me want to talk like that on the internet or something and want to share it with my friends. And so I find it so fascinating to how do you, sort of recreate that kind of level of virality. And so, with NFTs, this is a very similar phenomenon where, and obviously I think community building is very important. So part of why Bored Apes became so huge is because they are very good at, sort of like building their community. But, like I said, there's always that last level of serendipity that is very hard to quantify and to predict or measure, which I find so fascinating. And so coming from, when I was looking at my original work, or when I first started creating in the space, I also was often studying things that are viral, or, things that just permeate the mind, right? And then trying to first try and see if that element is recreatable, and then how do I inject that into my work, so that my work can spread faster as somebody who didn't already come from being famous. And so, there's some ways, like usually I think, for me, these are just like my recipes, and it's not a secret. I can share it. I don't really care. I often find things that are trippy are cool. People find cool, so they want to share that. And also, when you take a look at Japanese commercials, they're often very ridiculous and over the top, which ties back to the whole sort of like concept of memes and having a sense of humor. So incorporating that into my work has helped the spread of it as well, and several other things. But those are kind of the ways that I like to think about it.
The trippy word sounds like the perfect word, doesn't it, for the cool NFT? If it's trippy, then it'll probably go viral, right?
Yeah, or if it's cute, I thought Cool Cats is cute, pudgy penguins are cute. Recently I discovered this collection called Chubby Corns, and I literally bought one because they're cute.
Well, I actually have a funny story recently. So I did a collaboration with Steve Aoki, and then we took some pictures like outside of Sotheby's, and then when he tweeted one of them, and this is sort of like a story of how I discovered a community or something. So basically, there's these NFTs called Chubby Corns. They're like,
how are they called?
They're called Chubby Corns, but they're like these really cute looking unicorn things that are like chubby, and they all have like really weird, funny haircuts.
He's going and buying one. OpenSea right now.
Yes. But so how I discovered them was somebody like, because how Steve Aoki does those like jump photos where he's like jumping in the air. So he made us do one, and then somebody like photoshopped like chubby corns into our photos. It looked like we were like riding these chubby corns, and it was actually a really well done Photoshop job. And then so through this, obviously I didn't know what they were. I was like, but because somebody did this, I discovered it. And then when Steve Aoki and I were at the Sotheby's dinner, we were like, look at this photo, like it's so well done or whatever. And then we were just like joking about it. We're like, oh, we should just like buy some. They're actually like, they were kind of expensive because there's only 250 of them, but because they're so cute. So whatever their strategy was, it totally worked, and then when we bought some, like the entire like community was like, oh my God, like Steve Aoki and People Pleaser like bought some chubby corns, and then they started making a bunch of like fan art and meme art around it, and then just like, so I feel like that's, to me, I was like, well, this community clearly knows what they're doing. Like, they built up this brand like really quickly, and then they're also like providing things like, that we would perceive of like value, which is like creating memes and, like new fan art and all of this kind of stuff. They're like very fast at like what they do. And then shortly after, like, some well-known collectors like AAA was like, I'm going to buy chubby corns. Like he placed like bids on like 15 of them or something like, so this is just like a funny story and an example of how a community can be built just on social media by, spreading the word.
So yeah, like I said, there's many, many reasons why. And then of course it's also subjective, and that's why we're seeing so many different communities spring up. And that's the beauty of it, is I think, there is a community for everybody with different tastes if you're looking for it.
Yeah. I have a tough question for you a little bit, but once you become famous, as you're saying, it's kind of like whatever you do, like Gary Vaynerchuk, if they do something, it will be successful. But is there a little bit of pressure from an artist standpoint where you're like, if you have like a crazy hit, like your memes or your actual NFTs become an absolute crazy success that the bar has gone so high, suddenly you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do to surpass that? Isn't that like
of course, yeah. I mean, so I guess maybe my obviously I've been building up my community since DeFi Summer, and my sort of like OG fans know me from there. And I've created, multiple animations before, but I think the one that most people know me from, or like my magnum opus, let's say, was probably the Uniswap V3 animation that I did in March. Because the announcement itself was already a very, very highly anticipated event, so that certainly helped. I'm not going to take all the credit and say, but my animation, I think, also contributed. So basically, the animation went viral. Like the day they posted it, within 24 hours, it got over 500,000 views. And I remember Hayden Adams, he's the creator of Uniswap, told me, he's like, yeah, your video or that tweet is still our like most liked and most engaged tweet up to date. And then obviously then I dropped it as an NFT, and then it sold for $500,000. And Pleaser DAO was created. And then so after that experience, I remember I was talking to a friend and I was like, I feel like that was my peak probably. And I'm, it's all downhill from here, basically. Yeah, I was like, I should probably just never drop an NFT again, because how can I top that, And so definitely I think there's always some kind of like pressure. And I am also a competitive person. So, like I do look at other artists in the space, like, oh, when they sell something, and then like I don't do as well, it's like, oh, did I do something wrong? But then, I think now I'm getting better at sort of just being more focused on my mission and the message that I'm trying to spread, as opposed to the numbers that I generate. And then, luckily, like, these things don't happen very often, but luckily later this summer, right, in the same year, I had the opportunity to do the cover of Fortune magazine, and that also went super viral. And so, I would say like, oh, well, I guess that was, Uniswap wasn't my only peak, of the year. And I hope that, it's hard to predict or know when these things are going to happen, but at the very least, my own ethos is that when I see a good opportunity, I will take it, and I will work hard and, put the effort into doing the best work that I can. And if I keep doing that, hopefully I'll have more peaks in the future.
So many hidden gems of what you're saying here on how you built your success, and hopefully people will appreciate all these tips and stuff like that. I have to ask you, so it's kind of make me think, when you think about memes, but also the meme coins, right? If I really understand what you're telling me, it almost feels like, how did a Shiba Inu or how did a Dogecoin go up so high in market cap when it doesn't really have fundamental value? Is it just the fact that there's that virality that you mentioned, plus the building of a community? Are there any other like specific points that made projects so successful in your eyes?
I think specifically with meme projects, those are probably the main points, right? But obviously other projects that like either they have utility or something, probably they're successful because they have a great team. Great development, like great code, great marketing. There's so many elements that contribute to why something can be successful, and always probably the element of luck as well.
Of luck, yeah. It's always like, I read a book actually back in the day, was saying that success is a combination of skill and luck, right? And the more skill you have, the less luck you need.
Sure.
Right? So
absolutely.
This is probably a question that everyone asks you, literally. Like, what is the future of NFTs? Everyone is wondering, what's the next step? Or what are some developments that you as an NFT artist want to see maybe next year, maybe a limitation you still have at the moment? Is it the chain scalability of Ethereum, et cetera, et cetera? But what is like the happy scenario for People Pleaser in 2022, for instance, or beyond?
Well, the happy scenario is that NFTs are way more mainstream than they are now, or there's less people calling it a scam and sort of understanding why. The tech itself is revolutionary, just like this widespread of information, I hope. And then in terms of utility, I think currently Web3 is kind of being held together by duct tape. So I don't even think we're ready for the masses if they wanted to join now, because so many things break, I think probably because we're so early. And then, like, can you imagine if all of the developers of, let's say, who are working on tech startups in Silicon Valley suddenly migrate over to Web3, then we'll get definitely a boost in terms of product development and just, efficiency and just things growing in the space. And so hopefully, I think in 2022, we'll see more of that, as well as I don't know, like currently, no offense to all the metaverses, but just like our hardware hasn't really caught up yet. So, it's like I try to run, Decentraland is cool, but it's not immersive, right? Like, it's like I try to run it on my laptop and then it's slow half the time, either because of internet or my hardware or something, you know what I mean? And so we need our tech, as in real life tech, to sort of catch up for this to be way bigger as well. But when we get to that point, I hope to see, I was thinking of like how cool would be like I have Bored Apes, right? And obviously people are like, these are really valuable, but in the metaverse or something, if you hold a Bored Ape NFT, it'll just generate an actual monkey that's walking around or something, and then you can use that to flex in the metaverse. It's like way cooler than just looking at a JPEG, right? So these are probably things that I would be excited about.
That would be so crazy. So an NFT that eventually in the metaverse becomes a character, comes to life, that can maybe produce other NFTs if they have children or...
Yeah, because then right now, when people are talking about breeding or like the mutant apes, they're just using JPEGs to sort of represent it, but we're conceptualizing it in our own heads. But imagine you can actually see it happen. That's pretty wild.
That would be so wild. Like, how far are we, do you think, in terms of hardware limitations to actually having a metaverse that, it's too hard to say.
Honestly, I think we're at least 3 years away, probably. I don't know though. Yeah.
But that would be crazy.
Yeah.
Mind blowing. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Last message you'd like to share with the community? Like, it's the first time that I've had such a perspective from the NFT art world. And, thanks to my daughter and people like you, I'm starting to get educated and understand, hopefully people out there as well. But any last message you'd like to share?
I guess the last message is just that I hope, I think something that's so cool about Web3 is the concept of, more people contributing or working together is better. This is the same thing with DAOs. It's like, I can't do everything myself, but when I band together with other sort of talented individuals, then you can create cooler and bigger things and tackle more complex problems in humanity. And so I just hope that, this sort of, because we are previously like in Web 2, there's like all these middlemen and corporations taking a lot of money. So then we have more limited resources, and that causes people to be either more competitive or like the gatekeeping mindset, and so those are normal, but it's like to really be immersed and change to Web3, you really have to change the way that you think, and go alone if you want to go fast, but if you go together, you'll go further.
And I'd love to ask you, people pleaser, like, obviously you're an NFT artist, you're also a woman in crypto, kind of a minority in this group. Are you seeing progress on that front? How is it in the space these days?
Yeah, honestly, I find the community to be very inclusive, especially the DeFi community is, and I talk about this often, which is just the fact that there are so many anonymous profiles out there. Like, you don't even actually have to be a person. And then as long as you're putting out cool work, people will recognize that and endorse that. And so I think a lot of the NFT community are coming in from like traditional art or that kind of like world where I think there is a little bit more sort of like gender disparities. I mean, just looking at, all the highest selling traditional artists are all male. There's a huge like price gap between, what females generate versus what males generate.
Yeah.
The community often has like a lot of like gatekeeping, it's all about like networking, knowing the right people. And so those are the kinds of concepts that I hope does not continue in NFTs and Web3, because, we have this new blank slate that we can start over with and set new ground rules, right? And so that's why I hope that, more of that inclusivity can be incorporated. And, people often talk about gender disparity in tech as well. And I have been meeting a lot of very talented women, not just artists, but builders, entrepreneurs within crypto, and then they're popping up more and more recently. So that's always nice to see. And I hope that it continues on an upward trend.
It's funny that you mentioned gatekeeping. Is that one of the biggest problems in the traditional art world? Because I'm not going to name the person by respect, but an artist that I know that's very talented, he started working for a famous artist that had his group. And every time he produces artists, it always goes through some sort of layering of the first group, the ultra VIPs have first access to auction on that specific piece of art. Mm-hmm. And then it goes down and it's really, really exclusive.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. And, we see that with that like community. I mean, I'm not super tapped into the traditional art world, obviously. I don't know anybody there. I don't know the right people, certainly, but I do know from speaking from other people who have had those experiences, like, how many hoops that you have to jump through by networking, trying to know the right people, the right galleries, and it's all about, just getting that boost from a very, very small subgroup of people who are, trying to protect their, I guess, status in the space, right? And but luckily, for me, I feel like, and we saw that translating over as well in the beginning with NFTs. I think, a lot of these platforms, like super rare. I mean, understandably, they want to maybe upkeep a certain, what they perceive as quality, but that sort of goes against the idea of decentralization, and Web3 is all about community and collectivism. And so, in the beginning, they were gatekeeping as well. Like, the only artists with certain amount of following on Instagram, for example, were allowed in the platform. And I do feel like that's a negative EV move for a lot of the platforms, and they're probably seeing that more and more now. I could also be just saying this because I did not come from, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't have any followers when I started in the NFT space and crypto. But luckily, because of, I started more from like the DeFi community, and people were way more welcoming there. They didn't judge me or think that my art was bad just because I didn't have any followers. If they think it's cool, they'll tweet about it, endorse it. And that's kind of how I built my current following, and so I'm really grateful to obviously communities that are not exclusive, and I hope that it stays that way, or I will, at least now, hopefully, just continue to sort of spread this message.
Is that what really makes you the happiest in terms of this whole NFT space? Is the fact that it's a peer-to-peer, no agency, you're directly in touch with one person and nothing else? Are there any other things that are more beautiful than that for you as this NFT artist? Or I think it's just sort of, this song has been sung so many times, but it's just bringing power to the creators, right? There's this inversion of control, and it used to be, creators are after the platforms, and now platforms are after creators. It's a very interesting paradigm shift to witness as well. And the concept of like owning your own IP is very new. And so and just sort of now you have a way of transferring what previously would be perceived as like arbitrary things of value, like clout or following, into real monetary value, if you consider this magic internet money that we deal with. Beautiful note to end this interview. It's being all together, moving together forward. It makes a lot of sense. And thank you so much for coming on the show. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and blast that bell notification so you get access to more of these timeless interviews. Thank you so much for watching. See you next week, premiering at a PC near you, 8 o'clock GMT.